All right, so as I mentioned before, we are going to be going over 3 cards. Justice, gotta love justice. The Hanged Man, which may look a little different in your these are just different cards here today. And last but not least, we have our death card. Yes, all right. So, the Fool has making a wonderful journey. There are 21 cards in the Fool's journey, but we have only reached number 13. So there's so much more left to go, but he's also come so very far. So if we start from the beginning, the Fool was brand new, starting off on his own, really about that creation. Next, you have the Magician, who showed him what was in his pack, the skills and things that he was provided with. Following that, you have the High Priestess. She gave him time to kind of sit, think about his thoughts, really understand what it was that he wanted to create. And also, you got him in the Empress. Now, the Empress was there to help him grow his ideas, to actually get it ready, give him all the tools that he needed to start taking those steps, to start making that thing into reality. And you have the Emperor. The Emperor was all about control. It was all about directing. It was all about creating and manifesting on a more hands-on basis. As we move forward, you had, let's see, anyone wants to help me out? What's after the Emperor? Number 5, oh, the Hierophant. I knew that. So you have the Hierophant. He's the person that's going to be teaching the Fool. He's going to be that religious figure, the inspirational figure. He's there to provide information, much like the High Priestess, on a more vocal level, on a more community level. Next, you have the Lovers. The Lovers were about commitments, about things that were directing you onto another path that may not have been the same path that you were on. Okay? All right, next for our number 7. Number 7 is all about change. I've lost myself again. Anybody want to drop in the chat? What was number 7? What was it? All right, so moving on, you have your Strength card at number 8. You have the Hermit, which is what we went over yesterday. These are the other ones. So you have the Strength card, the Hermit, as well as the Wheel. That's going to be the Wheel of Fortune. Now, I'm going to go ahead and jump right into our PowerPoint. You guys have your cards ready, also your notebooks. You're going to go over the symbolism, and then again, I'm going to ask you today a little bit more about your cards in particular and what symbols are popping out to you that help you to define what your card means. All right, so we are moving right into the Justice. And again, go ahead and write down what your interpretations are, so your keywords, as well as your symbolism today. We're going to go over what the symbols are for your cards and what is kind of jumping out to you to define this card. So in this picture, we have a Justice figure seated or standing between 2 pillars. So it gives you a little bit of throwback to our High Priestess there. You also have scales in one hand. It's usually in the left. Upraised, there is a sword in the other hand, again, usually on the right. Sometimes the person is blindfolded, just to give you a sense of justice is blind. All right. So, this is a card that is ruled by Libras. Justice about code, objective, balance through reason, or natural force. This card that tells the core that excess have consequences. Indulging in drink and drugs will affect their health, just as excessive exercise can damage your muscles, your joints. Working too much can make one neglect your families and friends, etc. So here we have the Fool. The Fool is looking for a new path, a new aspiration and inspiration. So some of you were aware of this, but from our last card, the Fool had to rely on his inner strength. He realized that just brute strength wasn't going to necessarily get the job done. He also needed to have internal strength to calm the chaos on without. Also, he had decided to take a step back away from society. He was feeling a little burnt out from the same cycles that he was going through over and over. By the time that he reached the higher or the hermit, he had already repeated those cycles that he had been through before, and he was struggling to kind of get out of the same cycle. So he took a step back from society, really looked for that path that he needed to go on. And then as he came out of that path, he got some good fortune. There was a lot of things that was just given to him. And some of this is going to be based on means that are outside of your control, but some of it is also good karma. You put it out into the universe and it's coming back to you. Now, on his new path and his new aspirations for life, sitting uncertain at a crossroads, he noticed that there is a blind, wise woman listening to two brothers argue over an inheritance. They had come to her for judgment. One brother has the whole inheritance and the other has nothing. I ask that all of it be given to me, the poor brother demands, not only because I have a better right to it, because I will not be wasteful with it, as he is, but the rich brother protests. It is rightfully mine, and that's all that should matter, not what I do with it. The woman listens, then awards half of the rich brother's inheritance to the poor brother. The fool think this is only fair, but neither brother is happy. The rich one hates losing half his wealth, and the poor one feels he ought to have gotten it all. You were fair, the fool remarks to the woman after the brothers have left. Yes, I was, she answers plainly. With only half the inheritance, the rich one will stop being so wasteful, and the poor one will have as much as he needs. Even though they cannot see it, this decision was good for both. The fool thinks on this and realizes that he has spent his life achieving worldly ambitions and physical goods while leaving his spiritual self to starve. He ought to have given him half his time and energy to his spiritual self, but he didn't. It is no wonder that he feels unbalanced. Thanking the woman, he heads out to restore an equilibrium to his inner scales. Justice urges the Corinth to make adjustments and do whatever is necessary to bring things back into balance, physically, emotionally, socially, spiritually. Now, those four attributes are going to represent the 4 points of our tarot deck. Physically is going to be our pentacles, emotionally will be our cups, socially our swords, and spiritually the wands. Now, what it really means is that you need to have balance in all aspects of your life. So a mundane sense, a court case, legal documents, adjustments in a marriage or partnership. The outcome of all of these may not exactly be what the court wants, but it will be what they need. It will also be scrupulous fair. If the card is reversed, it can indicate a bias, obstruction of the law, or legal complications. Now, the Justice is a good card as compared to Strength, to stand as the first of the next 10 of the major arcana. The reason is that it moves from the physical world into the metaphysical world. So in the first part of the journey of the Fool, it was very much about securing things physically. Now, the justice is about you've spent that time on that one thing. Now it's time to move into another and balance out those other aspects. So the thing to remember about the justice card, it's not a card based on morality. It is not based on good or bad, right or wrong. It is not about punishment or reward. It is really about adjustment. The story suggests that some things, sometimes this won't be pleasant. Now, the justice pares things down with that of the sword so that the scales end up equal. Swords represent the mind and suggest that justice only listens to reason. Whenever you get swords, you also get that double edge. So it won't ever play out exactly as one would wish, but not also in the negative form either. The knife cuts both ways, if you will. Now, the sword represents the mind and suggests justice will only listen to reason. She will not be tricked by appeals or emotion or passions, nor bribed for that matter. She will be rational and cool-headed. So this message to you is that for the reader, they must be cool-headed as well and do what is necessary, no matter how hard or how disagreeable, in order to gain or regain equilibrium. It is not a nice card, but it also is a very wise card. All right, so in your upright position, some of the things that you may recognize with this justice card is that it's all about fairness, or fairness. But fairness that comes with a compromise. Neither parties are going to be completely happy with the outcome, but neither are going to be completely upset. And that goes for any situation that we find ourselves in where we have to use our rational thought. Now, in reverse, the justice is clear in this instance. There is unfairness, imbalance, no matter if it is referred to a court case, a family situation, or spiritually. The card is clear that things are not fair or balanced. You're either getting too much or too little of what you need. Now, the interpretation is quite consistent with the other interpretations as well. And the blocked representation, basically it is saying that something is keeping you from succeeding. Again, there is an unjust, but only because there's something preventing that, not because there is an unbalance. It may be as simple as the one person being selfish, or it could be as certain as evidence and legal documents have not yet come to light. Okay, so it's just a blocked sense in a sense of like it's coming, but it's just not there yet. And upside down, again, we have adjust, but it does go a bit further. If you turn this card completely upside down, it is not merely an accident that things are unbalanced, but something is blocking the justice that must be removed. Here, the whole system is suspect. The scales of balance are gone. The sword to slice things right down the middle is gone. Fairness cannot be achieved because the tools of justice are missing. The judge is biased, the lawyers and witnesses corrupt, the evidence has been tampered with. So in your reversal, you get a sense that it is not something that is being done on purpose. It is just saying that maybe you're just a little unbalanced and you need to go back and rebalance yourself. When you have the blocked interpretation, it is saying that there is something that is preventing you from being balanced, something that you need to remove so that you can continue on your journey. But in the complete upside down version, you are getting the fact that there is no justice that is going to be had, that there is something that is causing the injustice to continue, and it will continue because it is out of the hands of the warrant. All right, so let's go ahead and talk a little bit here. For the sake of time, actually, we are going to talk at the end, just so that I don't have to go back and forth into the PowerPoint. So if you can take notes at this moment, I'm going to give you a little bit of a couple minutes here. I want you to write down the symbolism that you see in your picture. Take the definition that you receive with your card reading itself, and I want you to write out what in the picture symbolizes that justice. What else in the picture is jumping out at you, and what could it possibly mean? And also anything that you may have questions about that you need understanding as far as something that you see in your card. I'll give you 2 minutes here. All right, in about 1 more minute. All right, got about 30 more seconds. Don't worry if you haven't written everything down. I will give you a little bit more time after each card, and then a little bit more time before we talk about them. All right, so moving on to our next card. As you can see, we have the Hanged Man. I actually really like the Hanged Man. Just the picture itself is pretty interesting. There is a man hanging by 1 foot from a bar or a tree. His free leg is always bent to form an inverted 4. In my picture, the leg isn't bent, but it should be bent again. His face is never, his face is always peaceful and it's never suffering. Sometimes his hands are bound, sometimes they dangle, sometimes they're at his side. Sometimes there are coins falling out of his pockets or hands as well. So, with Neptune, or water, as the planet, the Hanged Man is perhaps the most fascinating card in the deck. At 12, it is opposite of the World card, 21. With the World card, you can go infinitely out. With the Hanged Man, you can go infinitely within. So the story. The fool settles beneath the tree, intent on finding his spiritual self. There he stays for 9 days, without eating and barely moving. People passing by, animals, clouds, the wind, the rain, the stars, the sun, and moon. On the 9th day, with no conscious thought of why, he climbs in the tree and he dangles himself from a branch upside down like a child. For a moment, he surrenders all that he is, wants, knows, or care about. Coins fall from his pockets, and as he gazes down at them, seeing them not as money, but only as round bits of metal, it seemed to him that his perspective of the world has completely changed, as if his inward position has allowed him to dangle between the mundane world and the spiritual world, and be able to see both. It is a dazzling moment, dreamlike yet crystal clear. Timeless as the moment of clarity seems, he he realized that it will not last long. Very soon, he must right himself, but when he does, things will be different. He will have to act on what he has learned. For now, however, he hangs, weightless as if underwater, observing and absorbing, seeing. All right, so as I said, I really like the Hanged Man. The meaning for this is simple and yet complex. So the hangman is basically about finding out your internal situation and being able to really dig into yourself and get a different perspective for what's going on outside. Now, some readers believe that the hangman is a reflection of the story of Odin. Odin is the Thor god. He got them like he was stabbed in the eye. He did a whole bunch of stuff for his people so that they could have fire, control the winds, things of that nature. He was wounded by a spear, given bread or meat, and he dangled for 9 days. Lots of things happened to this man. But on the last day, he saw on the ground runes that had fallen from the tree. He understood their meaning, and coming down, he scooped them up for his own. All knowledge is to be found in those runes. Now, other readers like to point out that in older decks, the card is known as the traitor, referring to the fact that historically, some countries hung traitors upside down by the foot. And still, other readers like to point out that the hangman is like the moment when a babe in the womb turns upside down so that it may be born, hanging as it were from the umbilical cord. The hangman is similar to all of these things. Like Odin, he allows himself to be hung so that he can gain wisdom for the world. Like the traitors of old, he sacrificed himself for a cause and sees things as being in an inverted perspective. What is right to him is wrong to others, and vice versa. Like the babe in the womb, the hangman suspends between one world, the womb, and the next, outside the womb. What is important to remember is that the card is about suspension, not life or death. The court might feel that one thing has ended, yet the next has not begun, and they are stuck in a kind of waiting room. Things will continue on its moment, but for now they float timeless. So this isn't a position of rest, however, even though it is inverted. What it means is that his view of the world is different from the rest of us who walk upright. Thus, the waiting becomes a time of trial, meditation, selflessness, sacrifice, and prophecy. It is very similar to the sense of the hermit, where he is looking for his path. But in this, he's more willing the path to find him. Now, answers that elude the court become clear, solutions to problems are also found. This is the first step into esoteric. We might as well say it is to shed the mundane world and to be reborn. To do this, we must surrender all that we thought we knew, all resistance to new ways of thinking. We must make ourselves vulnerable to the visions and psychic energies. We must, if you like, return to the womb, a spiritual womb this time around, the one belonging to the high priestess who remembers, sits, and is at the still place between the opposites. So, as you can see, he has brought you back to the cycle, back to the high priestess, and that position you are again learning new information and digging deeper into that esoteric. This is the hangman does when he is willing himself to be suspended and dangled, inverted from one leg. Neptune is spiritually dreams and psychic abilities, and the hangman has allowed himself to be lowered deep into the waters, floating there, absorbing all that is being offered to him. It's a very long meeting. Basically, the card signifies a time when the corn is feeling sensitive, vulnerable, inverted, suspended. Basically, you're in a holding pattern and you're really trying to absorb all that is going on around you. The card is of visions, is about quests. but not about movement. Really about allowing that quest to come to you. You are probably going to be trying some new things, and they might seem a little strange. So the hangman could be as simple as going out with a type of person you never imagined eating, or trying some odd cuisine. It is also signifying a time to change your perspective. These moments don't really last long, and it does usually require a sacrifice. So you are giving up something, whether it's a belief, a wish, a dream, hope, money, time, or even selfhood. The sacrifice may be made to get into the inverted position, or it may be made to get out of that inverted position. Either way, in order to gain or any knowledge or any forward movement, you must also give. It could be great, it could be small, spiritual, or mundane, but what you gain from making that sacrifice allows you to see things differently on insights and a solution. These can help you and everyone else you care about, which is often why one goes through it in the first place. One thing is certain, once you have been the hangman, you never see things quite as you did before. All right, so to our reversals. Went a little farther. Upright, the hangman is about perspectives, sacrifices, vulnerabilities, selflessness, all the above. In the opposite position, however, the hang card usually involves sacrifice and insight, but refusal to surrender to those insights, refusal to see things from a new perspective. In this regard, the reverse card is of ego, stubbornness, and selfishness. So in a sense, you're being shown a different view, a different perspective, but you're refusing to believe it. You're clinging to whom and what they were before. All they have, refusing to give up, even though the exchange could transform them and help others. All right, now the blocked interpretation of this would basically suggest that you're feeling apart from the world, unable to bring what they're learning and seeing from this perspective back into the world with them. You might find this with people who have recently tried psychedelics, for example. The things that you see, the things that you encounter or experience, it's very hard to explain those things to other individuals once they're not on psychedelics. And even while they're on it, it's a little bit much. Now, if you turn this card completely upside down, the hangman, ironically, is actually right side up. He is standing rather than suspended. Now, I have mentioned before that sometimes our cards don't necessarily mean something completely negative. And in that case, in this reversal, you kind of see this. There's no sacrifice, there's no new insight, but maybe you didn't need that new insight. This suggests that whatever the Court is hoping to see, achieve, or do, perhaps needs to do, they cannot do. If we follow the mantra of no pain, no gain, the Court is not willing to suffer the pain or not able to suffer the pain, and so there is no gain. Now, this is the negative version of that, of course. But if you look at it in a perspective of maybe there's not something that you have to do. Maybe it is something that is more of an experience you go through and you remain part of yourself through that whole experience. So I'm also going to give you a little bit more time again here to kind of write down your thoughts about this card. Write down the symbolism that you are seeing. Write down what you think those things mean in the symbolism. So whether it's the position of his body, whether it's he's hanging from a tree or hanging from a bar, whatever you can see in your card, go ahead and pick out those symbolisms so that we can go over them later. Also, of course, throughout this whole experience, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat, and I will try to answer them immediately as opposed to at the end. All right, I'm gonna give you guys one more minute, and we will move on to the death card. The scary death card. I don't know if you guys ever seen Carmen Hip Hopper, but she got the death card and she was freaking out, and it was kind of hilarious, but and not funny because she not spoiled. We'll get to it. All right, let's go ahead and talk about the legendary death card. Honestly, the death card is one of those cards that is just simply iconic. Anyone who has heard of tarot, wanted to get into tarot, scared of tarot, the church, they all see the death card and they just freak out. Let's go over some of the meanings for the tarot, and maybe you'll get a better understanding and won't be so afraid when you see this card. So in the symbolism of this, you have the skeletal death, black robes or armor, sometimes with a scythe or a flag featuring a white rose on a black field. This is often a rising sun. Sometimes there are other figures, the most common being a child. I like our little tarot cards on the side that you can see. All right, so here's the story. Having left the tree from which he hung, the fool moves carefully through a fallow field, head still clearing from the visions. The air is cold and wintry, the trees bare. He knows that he has started on his spiritual journey in earnest, but feels strangely empty and profoundly sad, as if he has lost something. Before him he sees rising with the sun a skeleton in black armor, mounted on a white horse. He recognizes it as death. As it stops before him, he humbly adds, "Have I died?" And the skeleton answers, "Yes, in a way. You sacrificed your old world, your old self. Both are gone and dead." The fool cannot keep from weeping. "Forgive me," he says, embarrassed by his tears. "There is nothing to forgive," the death replies. "Mourning is natural, and you must deal with your loss before you can accept anything new." Keep in mind, however, that the old leaves must wither and fly away from a tree's branch, leaving them bare before new green leaves can appear. As death rides away, the fool sees that in truth, in those words, he too feels like a skeleton. All he has been stripped away. This he understands is how all great transformations start, by removing everything down to the bare bones or soil so that something new has room to grow. All right, so as you can see, the fool was very traumatized, kind of, when he came across death. Not in the sense of seeing death, which I might be a little more afraid to see the skeleton right up on the horse to the side, but the fool was more traumatized by the thought that he had to leave all that he had behind, that he was no longer going to be that same individual that he was before. And that actually is getting to the real meaning of what the death card is about. The most common question that most tarot readers get is, can the death card actually mean death? And the answer is yes. So the death card is about endings, and that does include ending of life. Everyone seems to forget, however, that the death card is not exclusively about the end of a human life. In fact, it is far more likely that the card is telling you that a goldfish or a houseplant will die. Death can mean the end of anything. And it doesn't actually have to be a goldfish or a plant. It could actually just be an ending to a past chapter of your life. The end of an era, the end of a trip, the closing of a restaurant, the breaking of a band, the conclusion of a very rough week. Any and all of these things, as well as a million more possibilities and interpretations, can be applied to the death card. So it is foolish to fear for the fact that once in a great while, it will let you know that some sick elderly relative might not be long for this world. Even more important to remember, the death card is less about soothing dying than about how a person deals with the ending. We might be delighted something is finally over and done with, like a terrible job that we hated. Or we might be heartbroken, like over the loss of that poor goldfish or boyfriend. Either way, we require the time to come to terms with the fact that something we were used to is no longer going to be a part of our lives. The death card is associated with Scorpios, of course, the Scorpios. It's all about transformation as it is about loss. It is only fitting that Scorpios be the zodiac sign for this card, however. Scorpio has three forms: the scorpion, the serpent, and the eagle. The death card indicates the transition from a lower to higher to highest. In addition, Scorpio is all about sex. So even as something that is taken form from us, something new is created. The new thing will not be the same as it was lost, but it will step into that empty space and give us a reason to carry on. The concept of sex and death in Scorpio is a strong indication of what the card is all about. We Westerners see death as frightening. The card, because we often see death as an end, and we hate for things to come to an end. However, in other traditions, death is a natural and important. It's the sad part of the ongoing cycle. In a karmic sense, you die so that you may be reborn. Winter comes so that there can be spring, and we can only appreciate what we have when we have lost. The death card signals such things. This is a time of change. Before even as this change occurs, however, the parent needs to mourn, to cry, and grieve. Weighing the notes, death humbles us, which means that we are brought low to feel empty or stripped to the bone. Once we have gone through the low point, however, we will find that there is room for something new, something fresh, something different to come into those lives, something that might exalt or transform us. So when you are reading someone and you are being quite honest about what they're going through, it may be a time of sorrow and mourning for them. You can also tell them that this too is not going to be forever. Our sadness will end in sunrise and a newborn phoenix rising from the ashes of the old. That is more Scorpio symbolism. Now, in reverse, however, this is not one of those good cards that are like upside down. It's not that bad. It's kind of like, we'll see. Now, the death card signifies an end to something or grieving, or with the hint that there will be something new to take place. However, in the opposite version, so the easiest reversal here is that something does not end and it does not die. But this may not be a good thing as it sounds. Ever have a favorite TV show? Yeah? Okay. You watch it over the 3 seasons, it hits its pinnacle of being brilliant and wonderful, and then it just starts to go downhill. And as it sinks, it gets worse and it stretches out, and you begin to wish that it had ended right after the pinnacle. Sometimes things need to come to a blessed end. Anyone who has someone in the hospital, alive but not alive, holding on to life but not living, knows that not death isn't a desired thing. Not death keeps people from grieving and from starting over and basically moving on from when it's done. It just stretches out a not life. Now, the block interpretation of this is going to be that the energy of the card here is about time of grief that leads to rebirth. If this is blocked, however, then you can't grieve. You can't face or relieve that pain from the loss, and they remain just kind of at the tunnel and refusing to go through it. which eventually you will have to. But. Oh, that's it. Okay. So let's go over some of the information that we did discuss. I'm gonna give you guys a couple more minutes here to write down the symbolism from your deck card. And then we will talk more about okay, so we will go ahead and talk a little bit more about your cards individually, some of the interpretations that you're getting from these cards, and any questions that you may have as well. So I'll give you another 2 minutes here, and then we'll get started talking about those cards. All right, so let's go ahead and get started here. Christiane, did you want to start us off?
All right. I don't have my camera on today, but I can go over some of my keywords.
Okay.
We learned today justice. One of the words that resonated was aspire. And with justice, you want to carry through your ambitions, and so aspire was something that was drawn to me. My next one was reason. To be wise, to know what you have to do. And my third word was order. Oops, sorry. Order. Order to manifest.
And what symbolism? So what in your card is kind of jumping out at you?
So for justice, it's just like it's like a person just standing ready to fight. Like he's got his sword in his hand, and he's got like a globe in his next hand. I guess represents the scale. So he's just kind of bringing like order. I did have a question for you about like the significance of the pillars. If like what do the pillars represent on our deck usually?
Okay, so the pillar could be in between place. So the Justice card kind of gives you a throwback to the High Priestess in the sense that we're in between one area and the next. With this, the beginning of the 10th is what they were saying. So it's leading you to a more spiritual level, a more spiritual atmosphere, as opposed to staying in the mundane, being in our physical world. So our journey until this point has all been physical. It's all about handling the physical level, growing things on the physical level, and achieving things on the physical level. But we try to find the pillar going to be leaving the physical world and moving into the spiritual world. So the pillars usually represent that in between place that you find yourself
in. Mm-hmm. All right. Yep. So, because in the UFO deck, it's mostly buildings. Like it's what they represent as pillars or like buildings. So makes sense to me, actually. Do you want me to like go through like also the next card?
Oh, yes. If you want to go ahead and go through the next one.
The Hanged Man. Some words I found was altruistic. Having a chance to prove yourself, to prove oneself. That's something you were mentioning, like some decks referred the hangman as a traitor. Almost like it's like you have a task at hand and you have to prove yourself. You have an ambition. So that's one thing. So altruistic. Second one, I for my card was quest. Mentioning like you're living in a cyclic world, like life is a cyclic condition, and you have a quest, so you have to encounter certain things in life. That's part of the hangman. I think it's from the like the expression on his face and going into like a new surroundings in his cycle of life. And my third word was perspective. Having a like gaining a, how did I say? It's like you have no grounding without insight. So you have to change perspective or see perspective. And that's something the hangman resonated with me. For my deck, the UFO, there's like a UFO in the sky and this person is being abducted. So they're being abducted and he's got the same like peaceful face, and that's pretty much it for that one. No questions there. And then for death, it's like a, for this card, it's like a priest and he's holding his cross to the sky and there's like UFOs kind of invading the city. There's lots of fire and smoke. So for death, I chose closure. Like there's answer, there's like something coming to an end, or like you say, or like there's just closure, there's an answer. This one was hard for me to find words. The next one I chose was recycle. There's like a transformation or like a new coming. And my third word was warning. Like there are signals of time and you have to be introspective. So there's signals telling you that something will happen. Not necessarily like death related, but like it's a warning sign almost. So sorry I'm not on today to show you because they're cool.
It's okay. Actually, you don't necessarily always have to show the picture. Talking about it definitely helps as well. Let's back though to your hangman for a second here. So I really like that it's about like man being abducted, and I just vision like can we call it in the being. Is he upside down?
Actually, he's not upside down. He's upright, but his legs are kind of like really loose. Like it just goes whichever way, but he's upright. Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. So it still kind of gives you that representation that he is moving from one world to the next, kind of transcending. A lot of the people back in the day who were kind of seeing those aliens, having alien sightings and stuff, they were smoking, a little intoxicated, open. They were very open to the idea that there was something else. That there was another life, there was another thing out there. So it is really about having an open mindset to be able to understand what is happening, that there is a change that needs to occur. I also that you mentioned cycles, because he was going through life cycles and he was trying to understand those life cycles. And being the that he is, getting a new perspective on the things that he thought he knew and what things are now and how he knows them as. Then onto your death card. So you did something that I want to talk about a little bit. So, in your invitation, the death card is a warning about things that are changing, about things that are going to be occurring. Whereas the death card in upright position is less about a warning as much as it's currently happening. So it's more like, you know, it's happening, you're going through the grieving process of it happening, and it is like a present situation. Now, in reverse, it could be seen as a warning. It could be seen as something that is also still happening, or maybe something that has already happened. Either way, it's affecting you on a longer period of time because you know it's coming, you know it's happening, and you know even when it's done, you're still not over it. But you, I really like, I love your deck. Maybe next time we'll do this if your camera's working and take a look and see those cards again. But do you have any questions or anything?
No, just about the pillars. Just the significance about the pillars, and that was.
Yeah. Did you want to add anything for your 3 cards?
Yeah. Does it matter which order I go in?
No, you can go. No, it doesn't matter. You can go in any order that you would like.
Okay, so I will start with the Judgment card. And what stood out to me, which is different than the Judgment cards that you had on the slideshow. But in this particular picture, here, I'm going to see if I can show you the camera. Hold on. Okay, Judgment. What stood out to me immediately was the yellow light around here. That's really where my main focus was. And then it immediately jumped to the bunny, which kind of gave me like some innocence, which when you were saying how the Judgment card is, there's the Justice is blind, I thought about the innocence from the bunny from there. So that's what I picked up from that card. And 1 second. Next we have the Death card, which what stood out to me. And this one, you know, honestly, nothing too out of the ordinary, like compared to the traditional Death card, where it's usually like a skeleton or someone on fire. This one seemed very chill to me, so nothing really came up for me on this one other than the grass is probably not, it's greener where you water it. That one fell. Okay, the Hanged Man. What stood out to me was the woman immediately. She seems very relaxed, centered, and exactly where she needs to be. I like that she was doing yoga. So that's what stood out. And then the last one was Justice. Yes. And immediately what stood out were the pink and purple colors. And for me, that's like such good goddess feminine like energy. And if you just look at her face, like she's just like, I know what's going on. So yeah, that's what I picked up from here. And that's pretty much it.
Okay, if you can you actually turn your camera on? I want to see your cards again. I want to, let's start with the death card that you had before. Yeah, death card, death, yes. Okay, so that sign says for sale, yes? Okay,
So it looks like they are moving out. They sold home. Yeah, the grass is not green, so maybe it's definitely some place that they no longer are wanting to keep or take care of. I do also see, your golden light in them as well that you were saying. And golden light just kind of showcases again, even though you leave something behind, there's something else going to be there to replace it. The cell sign also gives you the thought that even though this person or this family is no longer going to be in this home, there's someone else that that there's someone else that can take part of whatever it is that you're leaving behind. So this is also another example of what death means. Death is not necessarily about the loss of things. It's about leaving it for someone else to gain it, or gaining that new thing after you have taken something out of your life. And it's very similar to like you can only hold two things in your hand. Someone is offering you a third thing, you got to pull one down. So let's go ahead and look at your other card that you had. Okay, that was the Justice card saying with the pink and purple energy. Yes, that's beautiful. Okay, so I do like the vibes you're getting from this in the sense that yes, she is very much sure of herself. Very much in control. I like that she's taken her shoes. It does imply that she's done some hard work to achieve the level that she's at. And maybe the things that she has been through has been emotional, maybe has been more factual. But she seems like she's willing to at least compromise by rubbing her feet. So I'm saying that they're in pain. But she's willing to compromise. So she's willing to go through suffering to achieve whatever the goals is she's trying to achieve. I'm pretty sure she's not necessarily happy wearing them all day, but either way, she's fully getting done the things she's trying to get done. So that's the thing about the justice. Whereas it's about fairness, it's not about everybody's getting what they want. I'm pretty sure she would probably work in sweatpants and that'll be it. But you gotta do what you gotta do. Okay, and your last card again, sorry. Oh, okay, yeah. All right. So I think really interesting on this card, your person's leg is bent, as well as they are really sitting in an inverted position. So they're doing a handstand as opposed to just hanging by their feet. When you're hanging your feet, you're suspended, you're in that waist position. And this, all the weight is pretty much going toward your head. It's going towards your thoughts, your perspectives on, and also the balance that you're creating for yourself. So it's a little more of a active energy, this, because you are actively trying to maintain that balance or maintain that new perspective. And it's also something that you had to grow into. She wasn't able to just, kick up into a headstand. She had to practice. She had to requiet her mind and really secure that kind of internal strength. Do you agree? Okay. All right. Well, good job, you guys. It's wonderful. That's all we have for today. So again, thank you all for being a part of this journey. We are in this class 6 actually, because the first class is on the 2 and the meeting. So this is class 6. The files have been uploaded onto the Facebook. Go ahead onto the Facebook. You can check out those files if you need to download them. I'm pretty sure you can download them as well. What I will say is that for our video, I'm going to try and get them all uploaded on Sunday. So it's going to be a lot of work. It may be late on Sunday they will be uploaded, but I will do them. You will have them Sunday. Okay? Right. Thank you guys again. Much love. Chicken grease, hair grease. Catch you on the flip side.
Thank you.
See you.